Hello, my name is Charles Feldman.
And my name is
You're
Hila.
laughing about that. Why are you laughing about that?
I'm laughing because I think in this moment, we're lucky. I have everything crossed that technology is going to be with us today. Okay. So you are. Let's try that again. Who are you?
That's a good question.
I won't laugh. I promise.
Okay, you promise. Okay. Hello, my name is Charles Feldman,
And my name is Hila Hedker. And we're here for another episode of Trust on Purpose.
and today we're going to talk about something that I talk about with clients a lot in one form or another. Um, I, I talk about becoming an exceptional or being an exceptional trust builder. And I talk about it mostly in terms of being able to build and maintain and, if necessary, repair trust one on one with another individual. But I think there's also, in my experience, kind of a level two of exceptional trust builderness, whatever that would be, which is the capacity to build and or to create environments in which other people can easily build and maintain trust and even repair it when it is damaged with each other rather than so it's not just one-on-one me and another person, it's these people who I am working with. And this is particularly valuable for leaders who can do this. It's an amazing skill for a leader to have, one that's valuable, very valuable to learn and practice. So we want to talk a little bit about what that is and how a leader can cultivate that on a team or within a group that they're leading. So why don't let's see. First of all, I'm going to just do a technology check. Are we still recording?
I'm recording. Hallelujah.
Yay. Hallelujah. We've had a lot of um, technical problems with recording the last couple of days. So we feel really grateful that we're actually being able to record today. So, having kind of said that, where does that, how does that land with you, Eli? Is that your experience as well?
Yes. And I'm immediately thinking about some of the things that we talked about in the conversation before the conversation and how does one actually do that? So before we get into how does one actually do that, I'm thinking of a particular team that I worked with just a couple of weeks ago. And we did a half-day workshop on identifying personal values. And one of the things that I think I've talked about this in other episodes is the experience that I've had with kind of observational coaching and really looking for behaviors. And I want to give this leader a shout out. I'm actually going to send her a message after this, after we record today, because some of the things that she did intentionally are things that were trust building behaviors that support that building trust in the entire team. And so we're talking about this, kind of second level. There's one part of building trust in one-on-one relationships, but how do you create that environment? And there's a number of things that she did, even just starting to set up the day. Why are we here? What's the purpose? Why does this matter? What do we want to take away from today? Even something simple as her pace was slow and intentional and thoughtful. She shared a little bit about a personal experience that she's navigating that's a bit bumpy. So, I've got Brene Brown's, vulnerability isn't disclosure. And so this leader didn't disclose, but she was vulnerable in sharing, this is also part of the experience that I'm bringing into the room today and normalizing it. And so I just thinking about this, I want to just really give her kudos because I think sometimes it's just these really little things that we do consistently that can help create and model that ability for the team to feel like they can build trust with each other. I want to stop there. What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, well, I love the word intentionally, that this particular individual was doing these things intentionally. She was not leaving the process to chance. Uh, And so she identified particular things. I imagine, I'm just making this up, of course, but I imagine she identified particular actions that she wanted to take in this context that would do that. What do you think helped her recognize what actions would be valuable? Do you think it mostly intuitive, or do you think she actually kind of thought about it and had a plan based on something outside of just her own intuition?
I think, um, so I think a couple of things. So what I know about her is she is a planner. So even from our very beginning conversations about engaging to do this work together, she had already put some thought to the why, the what, a little bit of the how, and what do we need to do to create even just the space that day to be able to be vulnerable, self-reflective, sharing, building trust with each other. The other piece, again, what I do know about her is that she's put effort and intention into what she practices. So there's behaviors that aren't just random, but they matter to her. And so she's intentional about modeling and practicing those behaviors every single day.
Yeah, that's that's someone who is, I think, a not only exceptional trust builder at level one, but also it sounds like at level two, that capacity to create an environment in which other people can build trust and with which other people can really identify their values and purpose and be able to and willing to act on that, in accord with that. That's wonderful. And that I think is kind of getting to what we're talking about today. That's a big part of creating that environment, is to be intentional about it, to not just leave it to chance or random behaviors, but really think about it ahead of time.
Yeah. And
So
the other piece feels like it makes sense to highlight it here is that level two or that intentionality doesn't mean that we get it right every single time. So this isn't like, yay, I figured out all these behaviors. I do them every single day. Yes, you've identified behaviors. Yes, you're still 100% human. Yes, you're going to screw up and things are going to go off the trail or off the tracks sometime. But it's also in then how do I take accountability and how am I repairing again with that intentionality and normalizing that we're not supposed to get it right every single day.
yeah,
It ain't
which also
right.
is a one of those things. We've talked about this before, and we see it, of course, from, many of our colleagues talk about this as well, as this idea that, um, you know, leaders often are stuck in this paradigm where they have to be right. They have to, they're supposed to know all the answers. They're supposed to get it right every time, which is incredibly damaging to them as individuals and as leaders, but it's also damaging to what they're trying to do as a leader of a team. So again, yeah, just being able to acknowledge that for oneself, and then also acknowledge it to the team. I'm not going to get it right every time. In fact,
Mhm.
probably, hopefully it'll be better than 50%, but better than
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Or
yeah,
even, acknowledging that where we are right now and the problem that we're trying to solve, none of us have been here before. So how could we possibly know what to do? But
yeah,
collectively, let's figure that out.
yeah.
Right.
Let's
And for a leader to be transparent and actually say that and invite
that's
that collaboration, right?
and that's one of the things, going back to, what can people do? What can leaders do to create that environment, is model those aspects of trust building, that that allow people to do that. So modeling transparency, and as you said, modeling transparency is not, you know, saying everything, you know, uh, opening the kimono completely and showing it all off. It's what's important here, what's important to say, being vulnerable in that way. Yeah, transparency is definitely one of the pieces of building an environment or creating an environment in which people feel like they can build trust with each other because their leader is being transparent and also encouraging them to be transparent. Um, in fact, I remember a leader that I had at one point um, in literally encouraging me to be more transparent about something that I was holding back on because I didn't think I had enough information, all the information that, so I wanted to, being kind of a introvert, I wanted to have all my ducks in a row and everything all set to speak about this. And so I wasn't saying some things that really needed to be said about the situation and the fact that it wasn't perfectly all tied together. And this particular leader encouraged me strongly to give some more information so that the team really had more and was able to work with it, which turned out to be the right thing. Huh. So yeah, being not just being transparent one as a leader oneself, demonstrating that, but also encouraging people on the team to do that.
Yeah. I can't think of a specific example, but I think the concept will make sense is, in that transparency, again, as a team, using this, the problem that we're trying to solve, we've never been here before. And how amazing for someone to say, I'm actually really unsure, or I have a crazy idea, but I have no data behind it. It's just a crazy idea. Or I feel like maybe we've bitten off more than we can chew. Maybe we need to pause and have a conversation about this. Right. And so creating that environment where your team members really feel supported to say these things and not be judged, criticized, belittled, shamed for putting something on the table so that we can have a conversation about it. Because that's what best supports the team.
Yes, yes. In fact, I'd made a little note of supportive interactions. In effect, intentionally making relationship building, kind of bringing it up to be on par with resolving the tasks, whatever they are. So creating relationship among the team members so that they can work that way. I just listened to someone, a fellow coach, works with teams, does work around trust building, talk about a team in which the CEO and 4 top leaders for the company. CEO doesn't actually meet with the whole team. He tells them to go off and figure stuff out. So it's kind of like the opposite of what we're talking about here. You guys go figure this out. I don't need to be bothered with that. That's your job. Uh, Not really getting into when there's issues between members of the team, not getting into it. Again, telling them they gotta go figure it out. Um, and, that's really damaging to trust. The opposite of having a leader who is present there, felt, it's known that that leader cares about the people on the team and where the team is going and what they're trying to do so that they're working out of a sense of shared care.
So this one, and maybe I just need you to give me a bit more context, but I feel like this one is a bit of a tricky because where's the balance between your two lovely humans? There's something happening between you. I trust I support you two to figure it out. Obviously, if you can't, I'm here to support you. Versus the leader stepping in when maybe it's not required. So there's an organization that I work with. The leader has so much care. Like he cares so much about his entire team, small organization. So he often gets involved in conversations where sometimes I think they would be better served, like, of the conversation between the two of you. So where's the balance between I'm stepping in to support you versus I need you two to have the conversation between the two of you,
Yeah, what's really called for? Is
right?
it support that's really called for here? Um, yeah, I've been involved in a number of situations like that, both as a leader way back when, and certainly as a coach over the years. And that's something that takes some real understanding. What's the what outcome are we looking towards? What are we trying to accomplish here? These two people have um, I'll just again use a situation that I was involved with that I can remember pretty well. That there are two people, there are peers, their leader, the leader of their team had been. Well, first of all, their disagreement with each other, there's very specific lack of trust in each other was causing all kinds of problems because, of course, they were doing the things that people do when they don't trust each other. They were recruiting other team members, to my side of the story. They were not working with each other or collaborating, all this stuff. The team leader he he tried to support them in kind of talking it through, and it wasn't working. Nothing that just plain was not working. Um, and so he then tried telling them they've got to go figure it out for themselves because it's damaging the team and the results that we all together want to get and share. And that didn't work either.
No.
So he was kind of in a bind. Fortunately, um, a colleague and I were both involved in coaching in that organization, and so he came to us and said, what can we do? What can be done here? Um, and so what we ended up deciding to do was that I would actually work with both. I would sit down with both of these two people and have help them have a conversation where they could really listen to each other because that was what was missing is that they weren't really hearing and listening to understand each other. They were listening to shoot back at each other. So I think for this leader and the conundrum that this leader faced, he tried both approaches. He tried the let me help you, let me support you, and he tried the go figure this out. Um, and I'm not really answering your question, am I?
No,
Realizing
no, but
that.
which is
But yeah,
okay. Which is okay because I'm also thinking again about this one particular leader. And actually, I think it applies to many leaders. We're paid to solve problems, right? So there's a problem. We need to fix
that's
it. Let me step in,
yes.
and and then this particular leader also works in a helping profession. So you got a double whammy, right? Where I'm a leader, I'm paid to solve problems. I also really like supporting people. That's the profession I've chosen. But I think step back to that initial, like, how do we help employees trust one another and build these relationships and model that? Then it's the intentionality and the pausing to have the conversation. How can I support you? What do you need in order to resolve this? Right? Tell me. I could see like,
Yeah, so
yeah,
I think you pointed to it at the very beginning, problem solving. If my support is in the form of solving the problem or helping you solve the problem, that's where it begins to break down. It's just not going to work from that perspective. Before you can even, get there, first of all, the problem has to be solved by the people who are in it rather than somebody else in that case. So really what the leader can do is support from more of a, and I know this is going to sound kind of trite, but from a coaching perspective, from a perspective of asking questions, of making observations, but then leaving it up to the people involved to go where they go with the observations. And that I think is what happens to leaders often. People are paid to solve problems. And so we're going to solve this human to human problem in the same way that we solve, a staffing problem or um, maybe that's not exactly right, but uh, some kind of technical problem or some kind of sales problem or whatever it is. Um, and that's not going to work, I think.
Oh, and I just think, I'm listening to this. I'm like, people, we're not problems to solve,
Right.
right?
We're not. And people
And
don't like to feel like that.
no, no. And so, we use this term quite a bit. Maybe it's simply a breakdown. So how do we take care of the breakdown? And if I think again about this leader that I worked with him a few weeks ago doing the values, is that the reminder that we don't get upset about things that don't matter. We don't dig on our heels about things that we don't care about. And so, imitation, instead of being a problem between two people, is the grace, the understanding, the listening. What do you both really care about? What's underneath all of
Absolutely.
this, right? And a leader that can come with that kind of conversation, like that's incredible trust building.
Yes. And it kind of goes back to the definition that we use for trust. It's choosing to make something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. What is it that you care about? What is it that you value there? Because that's where it gets sticky for you. There's something that you fear is, that what you value is going to be damaged by the actions of the other person. And it's not until that gets out on the table, if you will, that you can really have a conversation about, can I trust you to take care of that? Can I trust you to not do things that will damage that?
I think I'm planting this seed. I think our next episode needs to be unpacking that. How do we help people identify what they value?
Yeah, that sounds like you've got some experience with that because you led a team in talking about that directly, which again is one of the things that I think a leader can do to create an environment in which people can build trust more easily with each other, is to take the time to have a conversation about what each of the people in the team values and what they collectively value.
Absolutely. And then how does that show up in our professional relationship, in our working together? There was a tiny little story. Earlier this year, I worked with a group, um, smaller group at a local university. And one of the participants identified that one of her values was harmony. Doesn't that sound like a lovely value? Harmony. Harmony. So the light side of that was that she spent time, energy, effort keeping the peace. The shadow side of that was that she spent so much time trying to keep the peace that she never voiced the things that were frustrating for her or disappointing for her or, caused anger or indignation or, all of those other lovely emotions because she was so busy working on keeping harmony.
Yeah.
So I'd asked her about one of the exercises I do when people are working on personal values is what pisses you off. Because again, we don't get upset about things that don't matter. And she's, oh, but I never get pissed off. I'm like, bullshit.
Mm.
You hear me think? Well,
Really?
I didn't say it in externally. That was my inside voice.
Yeah.
But but yeah, we talked about what's the impact to your team when you work so hard to keep the peace all the time. And then no one hears when you have something that is a breakdown for you. It was, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
little like
Wow.
rabbit hole there telling that story. But
And yeah, the important, the obvious thing is that that had an impact. I'm sure that when she was pissed off about something, even though she wasn't even telling herself, letting herself know that she was pissed off about it, but it leaks out. You know, that
I
kind of energy leaks out, and other people see it, and
absolutely.
other people react to it.
And, I'm not saying that you're, pissed off at a Mach 10, but even those little things like a 1 or a 2,
Yeah.
somebody cuts me off in traffic. I'm not going to do anything about it, but yeah, I might be irked about it. Or someone misses a deadline and doesn't let me know. Right? Accountability, transparency, reliability. I may, I may not say anything like the first time. I may not say something the second time, but of course I'm going to feel something. Yeah.
And if you continue to not say something, which is not going to be like you, but can be like other people, resentment builds up.
Mhm.
And then you're wandering around in a mood of resentment with a chip on your shoulder. Not you again, but I know people like this. Um, and that causes all kind of problems because people
Yeah.
don't know what the heck you're pissed off about. They just know you're pissed off about something,
Yeah.
and so then they're in a position of trying to guess.
Well, and full full transparency and vulnerability. I just had a situation like this, and we do this work every single day. Doesn't mean that I've got it figured out every day. And so there was a conversation I avoided, and I avoided again, and then I avoided it again. And then I was maybe not resentful at a Mach 10, but it was definitely bubbling. And so the accountability for me is that I didn't say something the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a leader, these are again things that we're modeling and supporting our team to do because it helps build that strong trust. Not only building it, but maintaining it. And then how do we repair it?
Yes. And accountability is one of those things that's really important in a team environment because so the conversation about how do we bring that up, um, it's one thing to have an agreement. If people agree on a team, we're going to bring it up. We're going to, call people out when they're doing things that, first of all, you have to have the conversation about what is our standard for XYZ. So that's a powerful conversation for any leader to have. And what are our standards around, um, um, commitments and completing commitments and what happens when people don't are not able to complete their commitment on time and all that kind of thing. But then we have the conversation about, okay, those are the things that we want to do, and those are the things we want to avoid. But now the important conversation is what happens when somebody does something that violates one of the standards that we've talked about
Yeah.
here, and how does that get
Yeah.
handled?
Yeah.
And is it and that's probably the most important conversation. First, read about that in Robert Keegan's, I can't remember the name of the specific book, but he talks about that having that conversation about how do we hold each other accountable? What does that look and sound like? So that we're all kind of coming from that same place. And do we actually go talk to the person directly about it? Do we go to our leader and have the leader, whatever that is, but we all need to agree, and then people can relax and don't need to be worried about, okay, the person's not upholding our standard. How's that going to be resolved?
Yes. Well, and I think natural human behavior is something's happened. I'm not sure how to talk about it. I'm a conflict avoider. I don't want to, like, I have a value of harmony, so I'm just going to work hard at keeping the peace. Whatever those
Yeah.
other influencers in, what typically happens is I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to avoid the conversation. And if the breakdown continues to happen, I may start to look for ways to work around you. Whereas if we've had this conversation up front, not not if something goes off the track, but when it comes off the track, how do we want to take care of it? What does that conversation look like? Is it between people? Is it with the, like, all of these things? So yeah, again, when it happens, it's like, oh, I got my cheat sheet. I know exactly what to do. And I feel supported to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the second part of that is the most important part is that I feel supported in doing that because we've all talked about it and we know that even the person I'm going to go talk to, they may be initially kind of upset or take it back or whatever, but eventually, pretty quickly they'll remember that this is what we've all agreed to do. This is how we're going to do it.
If I didn't care about the relationship, I'm not going to say anything because why would I? And so the reminder that we're saying something, we're having this conversation because we care.
Absolutely, yeah. That, in fact, that's one of the ways, again, that a leader or anyone else on a team can build trust in the domain of care is to have those hard conversations because it says, I care. Um, I want to just go back to something what you talked about the person who says, oh, I don't like conflict. I'm a conflict avoider. So I'm going to try and, just um, make sure everything is, there's harmony here. And it's interesting to watch when you were sort of talking about that because you were kind of moving back and moving back and moving back, which is what happens, I think, to conflict avoiders, uh, rather than actually confronting and talking, raising the issue, saying, here's the breakdown. They move out. And yeah, you're right. They move out and then they move around. But the first move is back and away and out, which is not a place of trust. It's a place of distrust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's an interesting exercise I've done with some groups where I have them stand in a line of I maybe not enjoy, but I engage in conflict, and maybe even I enjoy it, to I avoid it at all costs. And I
Mm,
give myself an as an example, like, picture the end of that line and then get in your car and drive about 5 kilometers down the road, and that's where I am. So just to let you know, like, but it's fascinating again when you can do this with an intact team in a trusted environment where you can talk about this, to see and visually have that representation of, oh, wow, I had no idea that you actually love conflict and you engage in it and it's like fun, like get out the popcorn, let's do it some more. And then having that person also see, I see that you don't enjoy it. So it's great. It's a great foundation for so understanding that we all have a different relationship or propensity to conflict. Then how do we navigate this because we care? because we don't want to avoid and shove things under our desk. So again, this is stuff that a leader can absolutely help facilitate
Yes.
and have these conversations. And I don't want to lose sight of something you said yesterday when we were trying to record. It was also really important is the leader supporting, encouraging that everyone has space and voice, that we hear from everyone, and especially when we're co-designing, creating standards, or how are we going to take care of the breakdown, that everybody's voice is important.
Absolutely. There's some research about just teams in general, and the most innovative and productive teams. It turns out if you sit somebody in the room and they count airtime, um, the teams that are most productive and most innovative are the ones where people have generally equal airtime. Um, the ones that are less productive and certainly less creative are the ones that are dominated by one or two or three voices, and everybody else sits there. So that's just in general in doing the team's business as they go about being a team together. But what you're pointing to, I think, is really critical, is that needs to be the case when you're actually talking through some of these interpersonal, how are we going to be together as a team, as opposed to the doing side of it.
So if there's a conversation that is happening and it's maybe a net new topic or something that I feel requires some thinking, then give me time to do that or have half the conversation and then time for thinking and then we come back. So this is maybe a weird example, but remember the days where, we've got to be creative and innovative on demand. Like we're going to have a brainstorming meeting and you're all going to be creative, like go now. Well, and then everybody's minds are blank,
Right. Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
similar to setting up conversations where people feel that they can have ideas, use their voices, but also in this moment, I actually don't have anything. It's something I want to think about. Can I come back and share my ideas, or can we have a part two, or whatever that is? So it's also realizing and supporting that not everybody's going to have ideas in the moment. So how's the leader prepping for that and then supporting, yeah, I actually really want to think about this.
Yeah. That's absolutely imp- critical, I think, if you want to get everybody's input, because it's pretty well known that people who are introverts want to think about it before they open their mouth and say something, and it may take them a while to organize their thoughts, and so they're not just as necessarily going to jump right in. They'll hold back. So if you want their thoughts and if you want to encourage them to do that, and that's a great idea, is taking a pause and saying, let's go think about what we've talked about so far, or whatever it is. There's some good books about how to lead introverts. That's another thing to kind of as a resource.
But also say, so I am typically quite an extreme extrovert. And there are times where I have nothing to say because I'm thinking, or the question that's been posed or the invitation that's been posed, I feel like it requires time. Like it's not pull an idea out of my ass and go with it. It's something I care about or something that really matters. And so even as an extreme extrovert, there are times I need that space. And so this could be part of your co-design as the leader. So here's the outcome. How do we get there to ensure that everyone has space and time to share their ideas and thoughts?
Yeah.
How do we do that? Help me design it.
Yeah. that actually is that sounds in a sense like a condition of satisfaction. I'm going to, the part of my outcome, that's what it needs to look like, is that everybody has had time to really think through. And some people will need that time more than others.
Yeah. Yeah.
So co-designing. Yeah.
Co-designing, which I feel is just like this superpower that we all have in our toolbox, but we forget about it.
Yeah. I think that, well,
Like, I don't,
because, oh, I was just going to say, we've talked about this before. Everybody's in such a rush, you know, everything is urgent, which means nothing is urgent, but it's all urgent. And so we're rushing around trying to do all these things. We're in a constant do mode. Um, and I say we, actually, I'm referring to a lot of my clients. Um, and so that kind of puts a damper on taking some time to use these tools in our toolbox, for the leaders to use the tools that they know they have, but they forget because, you know, there's the next thing that comes rushing into their office, or um, comes up in their email or texts or whatever.
it's just giggling. There's a leader I coached, and he realized that his one-on-ones with his team were quite ineffective. And so his to-do was, well, I need to redesign how I have one-on-ones. I'm like, well, that's one option. What if you just ask them? What if you actually like ask them, could we co-design what you want your one-on-ones to look like? And he's like, that's a great idea. Yeah. Like, what if we just ask them?
Yeah.
What if we
It's
just ask them?
amazing, those little things like that. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to figure it out.
Yeah. It's not all up to me. Absolutely. I think this may be a point to kind of wrap this up. And I just want to kind of go back over what we've said leaders can do to create an environment in which, um, in which the people on the team or in the group or whatever, can build trust with each other, not only when the team is working together, but when they're working one-on-one with each other out there doing whatever they're doing. And so we've talked about, first of all, establishing what do we care about collectively, individually and collectively, and making that public within the team, within the group. And kind of that bleeds into transparency and being transparent about what's important to us, because that's where the energy is. And it isn't about disclosing everything. It's about saying, this is what's important to me. And this is kind of why it's important, not kind of, but why it's important to me. And then, and kind of in a way declaring that this is where we're going. Um, supporting, supporting people in being open and transparent and honest, and also in having those challenging conversations. And so how do you support them? And we talked a bit about that. It's not a problem to solve. it's something much more organic than that. What else?
Coming back again to the consistency in modeling behaviors. And as that lovely leader that I mentioned at the very beginning, it wasn't that she was doing huge sweeping things. It was the small things that she was doing along the way consistently that really helped create, model, and show her team like we're creating this trust together. The way she listened, I think slowing down, pace, presence versus, having it's not about having the right thing to say in response to you, but I'm really listening, really present with you. That goes a long, long way. We also talked, about how leaders are setting people up for success so that their voices can be heard. their thoughts and ideas can be heard.
I think that
I
covers
think
covers most of it, yeah. I think the
most
one
of
thing
it.
that we didn't say, well, we talked about creating or sharing or determining amongst the group what are our standards. What
Yes.
standards are we going to agree to in terms of how, not so much what we do, but how we do what we do. And then also having a conversation about what is expected when someone doesn't live up to that standard or violates that standard. How does
Yeah.
that conversation unfold, and having an agreement around that to make it so that everybody can relax around, okay, I know what I know what I need to do, and I know what I can expect from others if I mess up. The other thing that we didn't really talk about is talking about trust itself, and using a model of some kind, a framework of some kind, like the, 4 assessment domains that we talk about, or Brene Brown's um, braving model, or whatever model you have, but talking about trust in a way that allows people to kind of understand where other people are coming from and what their trust hot buttons are and concerns are, so that I know, oh, this person, it's really important for this person, that if they share a confidence, that I keep it, that I don't let it slip out to other people. So I need to be very careful, conscious of that, or whatever it is, whatever it might be that that person's trust hot button is.
That just reminds me of you and I haven't necessarily talked about this a lot, but that the confidentiality or the V in braving is the vault, and how there's this really great video that Brene has. I'll grab it so that Hillary can put it in our description.
Great.
But she talks about this vault, and that, you and I keep confidences. That what you say to me, I keep, I don't share. It's not my story to tell. But she says the other part of confidentiality is that I think doesn't get highlighted, and is definitely a breakdown, is when I come to you and tell you a story about someone else.
Yes.
Right? But you're my people. You're my BF, right? You're who I can talk to. But that is a trust breakdown. And so if I'm coming to you and sharing confidences or stories that are not mine to share, then I'm actually not holding that V or that confidentiality that's required in trust.
Yeah. You're not holding it with that other person who told you whatever it is. And they may in fact be okay with you telling me, but you don't know that.
I don't know that. Yeah. Yeah. I think it will.
So
That might be another topic.
I think, yes, that would be a
I think
good,
that's it now. Yeah. Excellent. Well,
anyway. Yes, this has, I think, been a useful, I hope this has been a good conversation and useful conversation for your listeners. And that if you have any questions, of course, you can email us. Will be there information in the, whatever you call it, the, not the liner
our,
notes, but
our,
the
our show notes. Our show
show
notes.
notes. So yeah, I couldn't come up with show notes. I'm stuck back in the 70s with liner notes in the album.
Now I feel
But
like
yeah,
there's disco balls and streamers and stuff in our show notes.
I, all right, Ela, thank you. And we'll be back again. We hope you've had a thought-provoking hour or half hour.
All right. Thank you, Charles.
On behalf of both Charles and myself, we want to say a big thank you to our producer and sound editor, Chad Penner, Hillary Rideout of Inside Out Branding, who does our promotion, our amazing graphics, and marketing for us. And our theme music was composed by Jonas Smith. If you have any questions or comments for us about the podcast, if you have a trust-related situation that you'd like us to take up in one of our episodes, we'd love to hear from you at trust@trustonpurpose.org.
And we'd also like to thank you, our listeners. Take care and keep building trust on purpose.
Until next time.
Until next time.